sweatshirt producers in the world, and on their website it says that Nike is committed to building deeper community connections and spreading positive social change around the world. And yeah, I find it interesting that with all their concern about creating positive change around the world, they use sweatshops to produce their products. So a sweatshop is a factory or workshop, especially in the clothing industry, where manual workers are employed at very low wages for long hours and long periods of time. And most of these sweatshops or factories are located in developing countries or third world countries. So this is the map of Southeast Asia, and so there's 73 in Thailand and 34 in Vietnam and many more in Southeast Asia. If Nike is concerned about trying to create positive change around the world, how is sweatshops going to help with that process? How is child labor creating a positive social change around the world? Workers are often deceived into working at these factories, and many of their parents sell their children because the parents of the children are promised a better life and future and high-paying jobs. So the parents, they don't necessarily want to give their children away to these factories so they can go work, but they think it'll be a better place for them because they'll earn more money than they do now. Sometimes the passports or papers of the workers are taken so they can't return home. So many workers are taken from Thailand and taken to Malaysia or Indonesia. So the people at the factory, the employees, they'll take away their passports and papers. And often they're forced to sign contracts so that they don't understand because they're in a different language or they can't read. These are kids that are our age and younger. They're working all day doing manual labor while they don't get breaks and get to go out and hang out with friends or go to school like we do. And the reasons the workers don't quit their jobs is because they live in the third world and developing countries where there are few jobs and they will do anything to get money. Working and living conditions in sweatshops are tough. The employees are usually forced to work overtime hours without getting paid, so usually 60 hours or more a week. And if they refuse to do the extra hours, then they are punished severely with, they could lose their job. And one of the punishments is that they have to run outside until they collapse or faint. And they have restricted access to water and the bathrooms during the day, and they're exposed to physical and verbal abuse. They are exposed to toxic gases and glue without the proper safety equipment, and they get paid below the minimum legal wage. In Indonesia, an employee of a Nike sweatshop was paid $1.25 a day, and that's barely enough to buy 2 meals in Indonesia. So, we as students usually can't go without 3 meals a day. So how are people who do manual labor supposed to afford or live off 2 meals a day? And an employee who no longer works in sweatshops in Indonesia recalls that he had to share a 9-foot by 9-foot cement room. So that one up there with like 5 to 10 families. He said that in the factories, including their sleeping space, there was no air conditioning or privacy. And the temperatures during the summer in like Thailand and Vietnam and Indonesia and these places are usually from 95 degrees to 102 degrees. So imagine that temperature in a building with restricted access to drinking water and no air conditioning and little fresh air and hundreds of people working in the same space. And all this time they're making products for Nike, which is one of the biggest sports producers in the world. So this Air Jordans and these sweatshops, they cost a little over $16 to make, and to when America or the European countries, Western countries, they sell these shoes, they're usually sold like $150 to $250. And this isn't an Air Jordan shoe, but it's similar. And Nike sold in the sweatshop, it cost them 83 cents to make, and Nike sold it for $250. And the selling cost of Nike products, not just shoes, but clothing and all that other stuff they make, is not determined by the cost to manufacture them, but by the status that the buyers think they confer. And this is a very unfair process because the workers do not benefit from this, and they still only get below the minimum wage. So this was like, for example, she made this dress for 60 cents and it was sold for $50, but she only still gets like below the minimum wage, even though the dress was sold for $50. And Nike is recently trying to improve their working conditions in factories, but there is still reports of abuse and unfair treatment and unfair pay. And they haven't been completely successful yet with keeping their factories in line. So Nike continues to post their commitments and standards in audit data. And in January of 2012, Nike settled with Indonesian workers to pay $1 million in overdue overtime wages as required by Indonesian labor laws. But in America, of course, like giving $1 million to another country is not that much for them. So, and there are many more sweatshops out there producing our clothes, and Nike is not the only factory place that uses these sweatshops. So a lot of other like brand names use these sweatshops and factories to produce their products. This doesn't mean that we should stop buying like Nike and all the brand name products. It just means that we should like be aware of the world around us and what is happening. And you can still buy their products, but now you know like what is going into your money and what is